In the village, life followed the slow rhythm of the seasons. Aubrey, a man from the future, found a new rhythm to his life. Each day was a deeper immersion in the customs and activities of this 10th century community, a constant and sometimes bewildering apprenticeship. At dawn, he would join the villagers in the fields, learning to till the soil with rudimentary tools. These moments offered him a direct perspective on the challenges of agriculture at the time, while also enabling him to forge bonds with the locals. Although his hands, accustomed to keyboards and screens, initially rebelled against the harshness of manual labor, they gradually adapted, hardening and becoming more dexterous. In the afternoon, Aubrey spent time with the village craftsmen. He watched the blacksmiths, carpenters, and weavers, fascinated by their skills. Although he understood the underlying principles of their work, he was aware of the limitations imposed by the tools and materials of the time. This only whetted his appetite to share his knowledge, but he had to restrain himself, reminding himself of the need not to upset the historical balance. Evenings were spent relaxing and socializing. Aubrey took part in community meals, where he listened to the elders' tales, learning the legends and stories of the village. These tales gave him a valuable insight into the culture and values of the time, a knowledge he absorbed with respect and interest. In this village, far from his previous life, Aubrey was learning not only to live, but to thrive. He was discovering the richness of a life connected to the land and to people, a stark contrast to the technologically advanced world from which he came. It was a lesson in humility and humanity, a reminder that, despite the centuries that separated him from his time, certain fundamental aspects of human life remained unchanged. One of Aubrey's first significant relationships was with the village chief, a man of robust stature and natural authority. Aubrey met him at a village assembly, where he offered to help solve a minor problem related to the construction of a new barn. The chief, impressed by Aubrey's insight, began to regard him with a mixture of curiosity and respect. Plunged into a distant world of the past, Aubrey often found himself prey to growing inner frustration. Every day in the medieval village was a constant reminder of the chasm that separated his modern knowledge from the reality in which he now lived. It was as if he'd been given a vast ocean to explore, but only a simple boat to sail in. Aubrey's frustration stemmed not only from the impossibility of sharing his advanced knowledge, but also from the gap between his intellectual potential and the limitations of his new environment. He saw room for improvement everywhere, in farming methods, construction techniques, resource management, but he had to constantly hold back. Every suggestion he held back, every idea he stifled was like a small personal defeat. Aubrey, in his ingenuity and unquenchable desire to innovate, embodies a universal truth about human nature, and in general, any entity endowed with deep intelligence. Intellectual expression is not only an aspiration, but an innate necessity. Throughout history, from the discovery of fire to the conquest of the stars, the human spirit has demonstrated an unshakable capacity to push back the frontiers of the unknown. Intellectual expression, especially in individuals with high cognitive potential like Aubrey, is rooted in their biology and psychology. It's a fundamental component of their being, just like essential physiological needs: eating, drinking, sleeping, etc. Just as an artist feels the need to paint or a musician to compose, intellectually gifted individuals feel an intrinsic need to challenge their minds, to question the world around them, and to find answers to complex questions. Albert Einstein, for example, is a universal symbol of scientific insight. His life, marked by periods of political upheaval and radical social change, did not prevent him from developing theories that revolutionized our understanding of the universe. Initially rejected by academic circles, Einstein persevered, demonstrating that true innovative thinking doesn't always conform to established norms. When it comes to music, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart is the epitome of musical genius. From an early age, he composed pieces of a complexity and beauty that defied the conventions of his time. His life, though marked by financial difficulties and personal disappointments, was a ceaseless cascade of musical creation. The richness and originality of his work bear witness to an inextinguishable creative impulse. Thus, in the field of cognitive psychology and intellectual history, one truth emerges persistently: The expression of intelligence, especially in individuals or species endowed with exceptional cognitive capacity, is often uncontrollable. It manifests itself with a force and persistence that surpass mere desires or constraints imposed by the environment. This phenomenon is often beyond conscious control. Just as the flow of a river cannot be completely impeded, the creative and intellectual impulse always finds its way. It can manifest itself in moments of sudden inspiration, ideas that arise spontaneously, or a persistent fascination with a problem or concept. So, in the rustic, frozen setting of the medieval village, Aubrey, a man from the future, was faced with a profoundly human dilemma. He was like a river whose course had suddenly been diverted, forced to adapt to a new landscape, while inevitably seeking to return to its natural course. Aubrey, armed with knowledge and skills that belonged to a world centuries more advanced, felt deep down an irrepressible impulse to express his knowledge. This need to express his intelligence was not simply a desire or an ambition. It was a force beyond him, a fundamental part of his psychology and identity. In this village of the past, far from his world and his time, Aubrey was not just a stranger in time. He was a man struggling with his own nature, a nature that inevitably sought to manifest itself in all its strength and splendor. Every interaction, every daily task was imbued with what he could have done, what improvements he could have made. Like a reservoir under pressure, the need to express his intellectual knowledge and innovative skills grew within him, threatening to breach the dikes of his reservoir. Then came the day when the dam broke. It was on a cold winter's morning, as he watched the villagers struggle to light fires with damp wood. Their struggle against the elements seemed symbolic of their entire existence, a constant struggle for survival and comfort. Aubrey, his hands deep in his pockets, felt a wave of determination pass through him. He could no longer simply be an observer. Aubrey's decision to give in to his intellectual imperatives was not an impulsive choice, but the inevitable culmination of months of repression and frustration. It was time for him to share his knowledge. This moment marked a turning point, not only in his stay in the village, but in his own inner journey. He had accepted that, even in this distant past, he could not escape what he was: a man of the future, an innovator, a thinker.